Welcome back to the studio. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Shona Bhattacharya. Let's take a look at our top stories in this edition. Wrapping up the 29th African Union Summit, leaders from around the continent focused on diverse issues, including financial reform and the Libyan crisis. Our correspondent reports from Addis Ababa. Coping without a president, Muhammadu Buhari has been in the UK much of this year for medical treatment. Nigerians are demanding to be better informed about his health a few short years after a previous president died in office. And counting the dead in Burundi, a new human rights report documents thousands of cases of violence and forced displacement more than 2 years after President Pierre Nkurunziza announced his intention to change the country's constitution and run for a third term. Our guest will be Florent Ged of the Worldwide Movement for Human Rights. And that's a wrap for the African Union Summit. The second day was largely dedicated to seeking solutions for the ongoing crisis in Libya. Other issues brought up during this 29th edition included reform as well as financing. AU members want to impose a 0.2% import tax on goods coming into member countries from outside to finance its operations. But critics warn of difficulties in implementing such a measure. François Picard reports from Addis Ababa.
It could be the last time that we'll have seen a biannual African Union summit. It'll be once a year. Streamlining was one of the big issues at this summit. And as the African Union leaders talked reform, they welcomed back an old member into the fold, Morocco. That didn't prevent a tiff over the language to be used when it comes to human rights in Western Sahara. Reform, bringing back old members, but there was also what to do about one of the countries that used to be one of the big motors of the African Union, Libya, now in chaos. The rotating president of the AU, Guinea's president Alpha Condé, says it's time, after coming out of mediation talks, for neighboring states to speak with one voice and to get all parties to the table.
We need all parties, political parties and the leaders of the important tribes. Because if those chiefs aren't implicated, the tribes won't sign up. We agree that neighboring states, Algeria, Egypt, Tunisia, Niger, Chad and Sudan should be able, from time to time, to meet under the auspices of President Sassou's mediation. They can meet, but we must speak with one voice. What we didn't accept was 3 of the states meeting on their own, so now it's settled.
And it's at the invitation of Alpha Condé that we had a surprise guest on day 2, the Saudi foreign minister, showing up at an AU summit for only the second time. He's trying to shore up support for his anti-Qatar coalition. And a lot of the action shifted from the main hall behind me to the side rooms where the bilateral talks were taking place. Officially, the AU is not taking sides, supporting the mediation efforts, but a lot of countries are taking sides on their own.
Praying for a miracle, rescuers in Ghana are scrambling to locate survivors 2 days after an illegal gold mine collapsed. At least 17 miners are still trapped underground. The illegal mine in Prestansua was more than 80 meters deep. The Ghanaian government temporarily banned the small-scale pits earlier this year because of its adverse effects on waterways and forests. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is hoping to regulate the industry and make it more professional. He's been back and forth to the UK to treat a mysterious illness. Since the beginning of the year, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has left commentators guessing as to what medical ailment he may have. As his absence grows, Nigerians debate the way it's affecting the country or not. Shirley Sipon has the story.
The African Union Summit, yet another event Muhammadu Buhari has skipped. President Buhari has been ill, replaced by his vice president, Yemi Osinbajo. Nigerians are divided over how his absence is affecting their lives.
The absence of the president does not really affect the economy negatively because he has an acting president who is acting very well in his capacity.
It will affect the economy and everything. Understand? When the head is not there, the body will be sick entirely. That's it. So nothing is moving, nothing is working, to be honest.
This radio station says its listeners are alarmed.
It's over 100 days now that the president has been away from home. They say it is worrisome. Others use the word it's disturbing. And others say that they are not so sure the stand of the country, considering the fact that there are so many agitations from left, right and center.
President Buhari has been on sick leave most of the year without disclosing his illness. Gone on treatment vacations in London from January to March and again since May 7th. Even when the president was back home, Nigerians felt little reassured when hearing this type of statement.
I couldn't recall ever being so sick since I was a young man.
And Nigerians need their president fit to tackle the country's challenges, including the biggest economic downturn in almost 2 decades. Only 7 years ago, another Nigerian president died while in office. This brought months of political instability.
It all started with an announcement. It's been more than 2 years now since Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza said he would change the constitution and run for a 3rd term. Since then, more than 1,200 people are reported killed, several hundred or even thousands of people have been tortured, and some 400,000 Burundians have fled to neighboring countries. Those numbers can be found in the latest report from the Worldwide Movement for Human Rights, known by its French acronym FIDH. And for more on this report, our guest is from that organization. Florent Ged, thank you so much for being our guest today on set. These numbers are staggering. How did you do the research?
We choose a report with 5 other Burundian human rights organizations. And so we've got each of our organizations got some informants that are working under strengths and under clandestinity also, because of course the regime tried to threaten them and even to kill them sometimes.
Let's play a soundbite now. Earlier in the French version of Eye on Africa on the French channel France 24, the advisor to President Pierre Nkurunziza defended his record. Let's take a listen.
How could they investigate for 2 years and not even mention Rwanda in their report? These young people who were transformed into killing machines. These refugees who were recruited in Rwanda and who were given weapons to commit attacks in Burundi. Did the International Federation for Human Rights not notice them? In this report, there's not a single mention of Nyombare, the former general who led a failed coup in May 2015.
So the advisor to the president there talking about Rwandan possible involvement and coup plots. But how has this crisis evolved since it began 2 years ago, and why is this report coming out now?
Actually, we issued a report in the last November of 200 pages mentioning the role of Rwanda. So, just to be clear, and actually, since 2 years now, we've gotten a radicalization of the regime. And the regime was authoritarian at the beginning, and more and step by step it became totalitarian regime, meaning that there is...
What is the difference exactly?
There is a unique party, and the government it's ordering all into the Burundi, and they closed the press organism, human rights organism, etc., etc. So even you are in France 24 and us as a human rights organization, we can't go there and we can't investigate it. Even the UN observers or the African Union observers are not allowed to do their job. So this is this authoritarian radicalism and regime that Pierre Nkurunziza is taking in place, and especially because he wants to represent himself for a fourth mandate in 2020, and that was the cause of the crisis, and he wants to play another game.
Thank you so much for joining us here on France 24. Florent Ged, unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but you can see that report on the website of the FIDH called the Worldwide Movement for Human Rights in English. That's the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. There's more news coming up next on France 24. Do stay with us.